Okay, welcome everyone. Thank you for coming. Thank you for joining us on Zoom. It's a great pleasure to host another QuPath training course. And a big thank you for all of the people who are involved in this work. Pete Bankhead, the creator of QuPath, and the whole QuPath team. Sarah McArdle and Mike Nelson, they actually did the majority of the work for the preparation of this course. Peter Sobolewski swooped in the very last minute and helped us to make those beautiful Jupyter Git books. And Kenneth Kim, who is our histopathologist, he is always a very positive force here. Michael and Elise Coit, their generous philanthropic donation allowed us to buy RareCyte Orion. That is the multiplexing system from which we have the data that are going to be used in our training. And the funding for this training course has been provided by Chan Zuckerberg Initiative. Sarah McArdle was a recipient of Imaging Scientists Grant, and that allows us to pay for the development of this material and for the event itself. So Lisa Booker is the friendly face that you've seen at the front desk. She's our administrative assistant extraordinary. Zainal Sarabi in our IT department that helps us to run and not get crazy with all of the computers and the traditional problems associated with them. And the facilities, the fact that we actually have a pretty nice space which works and you have those power outlets. For those who are not from US, this is all thanks to indirect cost. And we very much hope that the NIH will consider. Kasia Dobaczewska, Natalia Da Silva, Bill Kiosis, and Simon Goldstein, as well as all former members of the core. Thank you very much for your everyday hard work. And thank you all for coming and joining us on Zoom. So, you know, we live in difficult times. In this divided world, we are torn apart by wars, unrest, and inequality. And we're manipulated into being more polarized than we actually are. So let us agree that we can disagree on a lot of things, but the only way forward is to work together. And diseases suck. They are really bad. So trying to create a life without disease is a good goal. And you're all helping along those tracks. So we recruited you in a way to also being a part of our mission. So let's work together and share some resources and share some knowledge on how to be more efficient and how to do it better. We need your help. We need some of your feedback. And if you like this content, please give us a good testimonial. And some of us can also travel and teach. If you feel so inclined, you can go to our website at lgi.org and directly and monetarily, for a tax-deductible donation, you can support our Life Without Disease efforts directly. Of course, we're going to be here on our best professional behavior, so we want to make sure that we all respect each other and there's absolutely no harassment. Thank you for some of you who maybe feel a little bit under the weather today and you're wearing your face mask. This definitely helps us to limit the spread. So I really like history, and I like to remind myself that we are only guests on this world, and they were San Diego's first people. The Kumeyaay Native Americans were here long time before us. And there is also a history, of course, within QuPath. And by now, if you don't have the release candidate 3 QuPath 0.6.0 and the images, now is the time to really make sure that you do. If you notice, the QuPath logo is actually showing this more traditional type of immunoperoxidase staining. Because when QuPath was initially developed, that was a lot that Big Bang had, those were the data that he was analyzing. Now we have a lot more multiplexing capabilities in QuPath, But there's still, this is still work in progress. This is not a software that's completely finalized and ready and done. So in this course, we will do a lot of exploration of those relatively big data. We're going to be doing a lot of practice, and we're going to hopefully engage in this exchange of experiences. And we hope that you guys will have a lot of questions. You're coming here not knowing a ton about QuPath, not being experts in this, and it's perfectly fine to not know something and to ask us repeatedly about certain things. We just want to make sure that you get it and that you are able to take as much as possible away from this training. Those sessions are recorded. We're going to edit them, post them on YouTube. You also have access to the GitHub book, which provides step-by-step instructions. So I'm going to take just a few minutes to tell you about challenges with multiplexing immunofluorescence and how different providers of systems work around some of those challenges. So in a lot of samples, you're going to find a ton of autofluorescence. There's going to be cross-reactivity between the antibodies that you want to work with, and there's going to be limited number of channels in your microscope. And if you want to learn a little bit more about that, I provided our perspective on that. There is a webinar that's published on the RareCyte website, and you actually don't have to register, don't have to give them any data to watch this, which I very much like. So different companies have different approaches to this, and your data are going to be slightly different than ours. But what I just wanted to show is that there's many different ways to do it. And depending on the exact way how your multiplexing is done, you may need to consider certain things. In our case, we're doing autofluorescence removal and spectral extraction. And for dealing with potential cross-reactivity between our reagents, we're using directly labeled antibodies. And in terms of dealing with the limited number of channels, there are lots of methods that rely on cycling. We actually, again, do spectral extraction. So images for this training course, as I said, come from RareCyte Orion. This is a 20-channel system that have 18 that allows us to do 18-plex, and those are acquired in a single scan. And what's important is that when we establish our extraction matrix, we do single stain controls, and that helps us to remove bleed-through between those overlapping fluorophores, and that includes autofluorescence. We can actually separate it into its own channel. So the data that we're going to start working with, that's actually our first slide that we scanned on our Orion system. And one of the mottos that I have is that every image will have some artifacts, and we just need to make sure that we realize them, and we're trying to, cope with them. And honesty is my favorite long-term research strategy. It really works. It's liberating. And, let's admit that bioimage analysis is complicated, and all images have some artifacts. If you have good methods description, your reviewers can help you actually to find them and fix them. And it's always good to use those community-developed checklists for publishing your images or in image analysis routines. And we really would love if you could make your data fair, findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable. And we have this video from Mike on our last edition, From Samples to Knowledge, on reproducibility and topics associated with that. So I'm going to tell you now about 3 big problems that we're going to encounter with our data. Imaging is not flow cytometry. And one of the reasons why is because we're doing 2D sectioning to try to see something in a 3-dimensional specimen. And while we have those 3 cells that are, occupying a very distinct space in that 3-dimensional piece of tissue, when we take a section, we can have just a tiny cell fragment or an overlap that's being visible in that section, while that overlap does not actually exist in the tissue. Tissues are complex. You have autofluorescence, you will have some non-specific binding, And the biggest problem is that it's all pretty complicated and uneven. And we have a video on that on our 2023 edition on artifacts and ways to compensate for them. And then another problem, you know, pixels that we acquire on our imagers, they're actually pretty big. So in our case, we're going to be working with images that have pixel size of 325 nanometers. And just for reference, the cell membrane is about 10 nanometers. So in a single pixel, a lot can happen. And, you know, the fact that two antibodies exist in the same pixel does not necessarily imply that there is some colocalization or that there is double positive staining. So as I mentioned, I use that word pixels, and pixels are picture elements, and they are actually numbers. Computers store those images in the form of numbers. We can actually inspect those individual values. And if you haven't yet got a chance to read this book, this Introduction to Bioimage Analysis by Bankhead is one of my favorite books that, in a very funny and very good way, introduces new people to bioimage analysis. So what we're going to be doing a lot today is we're going to be visualizing data, and we're going to be using this this thing called lookup table, which will determine which color will be used to represent each value. And we can change those lookup tables. And we actually need to do that because the images that we acquired are in 16-bit format, and all of our screens are 8-bit. So we're going to have to adjust those images to be able to visualize them properly. And this is how a tool that we're going to be working with a lot. This is a histogram, and we're going to be using those histograms to adjust our lookup tables. On that histogram, you're going to see the lowest pixel value in the channel and the 99th percentile pixel value. And those two lines are going to be something that we're going to be using to change the lowest display value on the monitor and the brightest display value on the monitor.